Hey everyone, I am so excited to share with you this next interview that Dr. Gupta and I were able to have this morning with one of Broadway's leading ladies. This actress has not only graced the screen time on TV shows as with Madam Secretary and Quantico, but she was also been in some of the most iconic leading roles for women on Broadway. She has played Elphaba in Wicked. She's played Nina in the Heights, and currently she is or started the original role in Hamilton. So get ready to have some incredible nuggets thrown your way about what it takes to be on Broadway, how to transition it into TV, and also just what it takes to prepare for a role like this, and what are some things we as artists and then also as coaches need to help our students kind of get through to understand that demand. So without further ado, the incredible and very gracious Mandy Gonzales. What?
Spine. Smile for the neighbors, everything's fine, everything's cool. The standard reply, lots of tests, lots of papers. Smile, wave goodbye, and pray to the sky. Oh God, what will my parents say? Can I go in there and say, I know that I'm letting you down?
In the email last year, we threw in this like celebrity panel where we actually got to talk to like people who are in the industry, and like the little
Right.
nuggets and tidbits that we got from everybody, it was like the most requested thing that we had. And so I'm like, cool, we got to do it again, but we've never had anybody on Broadway. And so I was
Wow.
talking to Reena, and I was like, we need to get, and I was like, well, we need to get, and I was like, I know who to call. Let me see if I can get her, and we'll see. So
Aw.
forever thankful. I am very appreciative.
Yeah. I think it's so important, for young people or, whatever age, you're studying the voice to know that, theater is is open for them, and doing 8 shows a week on Broadway vocally is extremely taxing. And, having to be on your game like every night, and some nights it's great and some nights it's not. So it's kind of like, how do you balance doing 8 shows a week as a vocalist, and especially something like Hamilton where you are singing for 3 hours.
I mean, actually, you kind of just opened up the interview right now. I hope you're recording, Mindy, because that's a
I
great
got it.
starting point. Okay, good.
Oh, very cool.
Because yeah, you kind of led to a really wonderful starting point, which is we both of us train. I don't train. I work with, and Mindy trains a lot of young aspiring singers, and I particularly work with a performing arts school in Los Angeles called Orange County School of the Arts.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, they've got these incredibly talented singers, and in some ways they really are dealing with the Broadway level demand as high school students. So I wonder if you can speak a little bit more about managing that demand.
Well, I think so much of my training, working with my teacher, Wendy Parr, since I was about 15 years old, and starting to train as a vocalist when my grandma was like, oh, sorry. When my grandmother was like, what, this girl sings too loud, like we have to figure out what to do with her, and having a family that had no idea about show business. And luckily, my grandmother was a dinner theater down the street from our house, the Showboat Dinner Theater in Tarzana, California. And that's really where my training kind of began, because we used to go see those shows at the dinner theater, and it was a place that my brother didn't mind going to. We were a year apart, so anything we did together. And they had all you can eat pickles, and so we would watch these shows and eat our pickles, and just I fell in love with theater. And my first teacher was in one of those shows. She played Aldonza in Man of La Mancha, and I can't remember her last name, but her first name is Susan, and she was such an instrumental part of my beginning as a singer, at 7 years old, because she really taught me the foundation, which is all rooted in the breath. And it's all rooted in the breath because it's the place where you go to when you are feeling nervous. It's the place you go to when you think, oh my gosh, I have to hold this note for 16 counts. How am I going to do that? And so it's the place that you really need to build from. And a lot of people that are just starting or have been going for a long time, I noticed that there's so much tension and so much put towards how do I hit that note instead of how do I get in touch with myself through the breath and tell the story. So much of that is important, especially on Broadway. And I was lucky at 15, after I studied with Susan and a few other teachers afterwards, I was lucky to study with my teacher, Wendy Parr, who also is such a firm believer in the body being a whole thing, like a part of your singing voice. So I think for a lot of young people, it's about nurturing that foundation, which to me is in the breath. So it's about doing those exercises that are going to build your diaphragm, and kind of just getting to learn what it feels like to breathe. It's crazy because I'm known for a song called Breathe, but
I was just gonna say that.
it's so important because I get a lot, a lot of young people, are doing a show and they just want to be their best, and they have a lot of pressure on them because their family's in the audience, their friends are in the audience, their peers, and so much of the thing that will help them is to get connected with the diaphragm, with the breath, because all of a sudden it centers you and it makes you remember, especially in musical theater, because you are not just yourself, you're a character a lot of time, most of the time, unless the show's about you, that you've written, which is great. But most of the time in my life, I'm a character, so I have to get in touch with the breath and remind myself about the story, who I am, and it's those basics of who I am, what is it that I want, what's my obstacle, what's my objective, and what's getting in my way. And so all of a sudden, when you start to think about those things, the thoughts of, am I going to hit that note? How am I going to hold that? Everybody's watching me. All those thoughts start to dissipate, and you really just start to do the work. And I think that's so much a part of what young people, what I thought as a young person, like, oh, I just want to be in the spotlight. I just want to tell the story and sing. And really, it's work and it's a job. And to do it professionally, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of discipline. So it's about, drinking your water every day. I know you guys talk about it all the time, but it's about those things of really taking care of your body and looking at it as an instrument. And it doesn't mean you have to like run a marathon or do anything like that, but you should be building up your breath. You should be, when I was doing Wicked and doing Elphaba, singing that score is so intense that I really had to work on it while running on a treadmill, because I had to go through trap doors and go run around the stage. And I was on the stage the whole time. So I had to look at myself as an athlete. And that really taught me for every show after that. That's how I have to begin, is like, you have to think of yourself as an athlete who's just starting. So what do you need? You need your water. You need to concentrate on the breath. You need your foundation. You need to make sure that your chin is down and your posture is up. So it's all those things.
What a place to learn, though. You're on stage in Wicked, and it's like, I mean, you would think that with everything that you had done for so long, that it almost you wouldn't have been able to get to that point if that hadn't already been in place. But it's like you were always learning on the go and adjusting and making that growth and development until you get to the super challenging role, and you found an even more expansive way to train. It's really inspiring for these young people to hear that the work side of it, because I think you're right. The spotlight side is what maybe first draws people, or the music side, but treating it like an athletic endeavor and treating it like a training endeavor is a mindset shift for a lot of young people.
Yeah, I think so. For me, one part of being an artist is that you never stop. You never stop learning. You never stop growing. You never stop stretching. And that's why this forum is so important, and it's why it's so important while a lot of these young people are in their homes in quarantine and can't get to class and can't, work on the scenes that they want to work on with their peers. It's important that they continue to stretch themselves as artists, which is taking classes online, looking for those opportunities to be able to continue to do the work, and this is a great opportunity to try new things. When I was growing up and I was 7 and I started to learn about musical theater through my grandmother, my whole world was Ethel Merman. And I think Ethel Merman sang, yeah, like, and I
Yeah.
would sing like her. And you can still hear it sometimes in some of my singing because, and Judy Garland, like all these big, chest voice singers. And I just wanted to be that and emote that kind of feeling for people, like to bring out. But it was interesting to know that, like, I don't think she sang higher than a C.
No, I don't think so either.
Ethel Merman, and she was singing without a mic and had to sing that way. But now we're asked to sing these incredible scores that sometimes start on C, and it's very challenging. It's very challenging, and it can be kind of daunting at first when you are a vocalist who can hit those notes, and you do go and see a show like Wicked, and you say, at least I did. I was like, how am I going to do that? Like, how am I going to do that 8 shows a week and stay healthy? And really, it's through the work and through the training and through allowing myself to not let fear kind of get in the way.
Well, it's such an interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry, no, go ahead.
No, I talk a lot about being fearless, and my fearlessness doesn't come from not having fear. It's about having fear and continuing to do it anyway. So it's like I had that fear when I first, went into my first rehearsal for Wicked and being like, and then I just kept going. I went through those times where I had rehearsals and I was so nervous. I would be like, like my voice did that, and they were paying me. But it was during my process of rehearsal and getting over and working through that fear. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I think that what you just described, that progression of what you actually saw happen to music, I think some of the people who are just starting don't see that, right? They're coming into this world where it is Wicked. It is this new wave, in a way, of writing music. And so you got to sort of approach it realizing this is really challenging and I have to recalibrate how I do. And what I think I'm seeing with a lot of these like high school age people is that they're coming in saying, this is what I'm supposed to be able to do. Right? This is the benchmark. This is the starting
it's like the
point.
Axel,
yes, exactly.
Totally.
Exactly.
Like,
And I think that's where some of that frustration maybe comes from, or they give up because they don't have that foundation that you just described of like, I have this spectrum of an understanding of music, and I know that this is really hard. So I know I have to build to this, and I know what I have to train to do to get there. And I think that's really a helpful point that you just made, to realize where we've come musically over a decade.
Right.
No, did you learn?
True. It's so true. And I think, a lot of young people come up to me and they say, I just want to sound like you. When as you grow, you realize, well, you just sound like yourself. And that's beautiful. And sometimes your artistry, if you go, gosh, I don't have those high notes. I'll never be an alphabet. I'll never be this. But look at the other roles you can play, or write your own. That's
Yes.
part of it too. A lot of songwriters, they say, I don't fit in this world, so I'm just going to write my own show. So there's room for you, and there's room for you in theater and room for you in the arts. It's just, sometimes the path is going to lead you of where you don't think you're going to go. You know what I mean?
Did you ever think you'd be rapping?
Absolutely not. But I was lucky because, I listened to, I'm from LA, so I listened to a lot of rap growing up, but mostly I listened to it with my brother. because my brother was a huge Tupac fan, and he would drive me to school. Like I said, we're a year apart, and he put like subwoofers in his Jeep, the used Jeep that he got, and he would bump it to my school. But it was good because I fell in love with that medium.
I wanted to ask was, obviously with the background of having rap in your history with family, was there a specific training, or like was it just like getting into the pattern of it and really kind of curtailing it?
Yeah,
Or
no, it's the same thing about learning a song. I treated it the same way, where I really have to break it down, and it can't just be about what notes I have to hit and what the melody is. It has to be about what the story is, and what is this character trying to say, and why, um and what is the lyricist, what has he written? Because so many times I think we're especially in music sometimes, that we think that sometimes there's more to add, and I think that a lot of people feel that way sometimes because of how music is now. But the way that the composer wrote something is so important, and it's so important to get into that and see what it is, and really make that your own. And it's not about adding embellishments and things like that. It's really being true to the text. And for me as an artist, that's really, really important, as a place to start.
I had a question too, between you being on stage and doing TV. Is there a difference in that sort of training as well, or is it just kind of the same thing going in, or is like the process of
It's
that?
very different. It's
Right.
very
And how did
different.
you
I
even
feel
make
like,
that happen?
well, I feel like in theater, I'm like a senior, and then in TV, it's still like I'm a freshman, sophomore, like almost there, because it's such a different medium, and it's so much about the camera and the place where you stand, and there's not a lot of room, as much room for interpretation. You know, if you step out of the camera, it's like we have to do it again. So it becomes about those technical aspects are very, very important, and listening. So I think when I'm on set now, I really just take it in and I listen. And I've been so lucky to have worked on Madam Secretary. I worked on that show for like 2.5 years with some of the best, like, heavy hitters in this business, and watching somebody, like, all of my scenes and scene work was with Taya Leone, and watching her, and also, she's a producer on the show, and watching directors, and like Eric Stoltz is the main producer and also the director, and so just listening a lot and learning, I think, has been my biggest thing with television. And the waiting is hard for me, like the waiting between scenes, because I'm so used to being, ready to, once the show starts, we're on. And
Right.
in TV, it's like, well, we're on for like 12, 14 hours. And that's really hard, and so I give it to so many people that have mastered that, because it really is, it's its own thing.
Did you independently do any study in TV or film acting, or did you feel like your preparation from stage and then learning on the go and learning in that really incredible environment just translated eventually to where you are?
Well, I think I was lucky. When I lived in Los Angeles, I trained with Janet Alhanti and Iris Klein, who I love. And what I learned from them, the skills that I learned from them, I think you have to still go in with an open mind, an open heart, and be willing to take direction. So I think going in and saying, like, well, this is what I learned and this is what I'm going to do, it's like, okay, because it's still scene work. It's still, you're working with other actors. It's still working with the director. And so I think that the same thing with my teachers. It's about the foundation, getting that foundation. And then when you're on the set, feeling like it's okay to listen and learn, because it'll just make you a better artist.
Did you independently do any study in that, in TV or film acting, or did you feel like your preparation from stage and then learning on the go and learning in that really incredible environment just translated eventually to where you are?
Well, I think I was lucky. When I lived in Los Angeles, I trained with Janet Alhanti and Iris Klein, who I love. And what I learned from them, the skills that I learned from them, I think you have to still go in with an open mind, an open heart, and be willing to take direction. So I think going in and saying, like, well, this is what I learned and this is what I'm going to do, it's like, okay, because it's still scene work. It's still you're working with other actors. It's still working with the director, and so I think that the same thing with my teachers. It's about the foundation, getting that foundation, and then when you're on the set, feeling like it's okay to listen and learn. Because it'll just make you a better artist.
Have you ever felt like there's a tool that you've developed when you do find yourself in a challenging situation, either your voice isn't cooperating that day, or you're nervous for an audition for a TV thing, for example? Like, what have you done to put your head where you need it to be to perform?
I think what I do is I've learned more to be more kind to myself as a performer, and to know that there's perfection in the imperfection. And sometimes when my voice doesn't work, it's okay. And it's okay if I'm tired, and it's okay if it doesn't sound the way I want it to sound. I go back to the text and I go back to the work. And if I'm in that part of it, I, for some reason at this time in my life, the other part doesn't affect me as harshly. Like if I go into an audition, you know, people think like once you hit a certain part, like you don't have to audition. Like I audition all the time. I mean, not now, but I'm doing 8 shows a week, and I do about 5 to 10 auditions a week for television, and most of them I don't get. So that's just part of life as an artist, and so it's about letting go, like of the ones that didn't go as great, because who knows, you got it the night before, it's 10 pages, and you just couldn't prepare. You got a kid and you got other things going on. So it's about being kind to yourself and knowing that if this if, if this doesn't happen for you, it can be the next one. There's always a next opportunity. It's about you not holding on to that negative energy of I'm not good enough, I didn't get it, and letting that kind of sink you down. It's about like, okay, well, that didn't work. I'm going to cry about it, and now I'm going to move on.
Oh, I want to cry with gratefulness that you shared that. I think that is so incredibly important. As somebody at your caliber, for our audience to hear that, I think it's so empowering.
You talk a lot about fearless and having that. What is the fearless squad that you
Oh,
talk
goodness.
about a lot? And it's obviously something positive happening in social media and everything else. But what is it? Like, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I started the Fearless Squad because I noticed that a lot of young people, a lot of mothers about their kids would write to me. And when I first started on Broadway, it took time to get letters, and then you would write people back. But now with the internet, everything is so immediate, and everybody can DM you and contact you. And I noticed a lot of what I was getting was a lot of people that were feeling like they didn't belong somewhere. And I always felt like I was lucky, and I've been lucky throughout my career to kind of find myself and find where I belong. So I felt like if people didn't have a squad, they could be part of mine. And we would call it the Fearless Squad. And anybody could be part of it. You just put the hashtag out, hashtag Fearless Squad. And what it is I held your hand in mine, and together we changed the world. So we help each other when we fall, we embrace our differences, we look for the good, and we dream big. And together we're fearless. And again, it's not about living without fear, it's about feeling fear and doing it anyway. And sometimes you need a community around you to say, I can do it, and it's really crazy because I created this squad. We celebrated our 3-year anniversary, and this past year I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I
wow.
didn't realize how much I created this squad, not just for a community around me, but for myself, because I've had to lean on that squad through a lot of really hard times this year. But I'm happy to say that I finished my chemo 2 weeks ago during COVID.
Congratulations.
So which is so intense, and so much, you guys reaching out to me, so much of my healing through this has been through helping others and sharing my story. And so I think if this shares it with anybody, it just shows that no matter what you're going through, what your family member might be going through, it's scary, but we keep going. And your voice, as long as you have it, keep using it.
We all have iconic roles. You certainly have played people's iconic roles that they have on their list. Do you have an iconic role left that you're like, that's just even out of the box, where you're like, I want this, or I want this?
Absolutely.
Like, so give me some. I'd be very curious on what yours are based on who you have played.
Yeah, I think it's going back to my roots. My dream is to play like Mama Rose in Gypsy one day. And because I honestly, like, Ethel Merman was my go-to, or Reno Sweeney in Anything Goes. I would love to be cast as something that is, for me, a lot of people would say that's like out of the box, but I would like to change the box and create a new one, because I think that telling those stories, those iconic stories, would be so much fun.
Her parents raged. They didn't know she has to choose